The wind howls across the ice like a living thing. It never stops, not in April, not in Antarctica. At Novolazarevskaya station, the Soviet research base sits like a forgotten outpost at the edge of the world, surrounded by nothing but frozen wasteland, stretching in every direction. The sun hangs low on the horizon, caught between day and night, casting long shadows across the ice. Inside the cramped wooden buildings, 12 men go about their work in near silence. They are scientists, meteorologists, mechanics. They are young. Most of them have never been this isolated before. Among them is Leonid Rogozov. He's 27 years old, a surgeon from Leningrad. He has dark hair, intense eyes, and the kind of steady hands you want in an operating room. He volunteered for this expedition, knowing full well what it meant. 1 year, one full rotation through the Antarctic winter. No ships, no planes. No way out once the season turns. He knew the risks. He prepared for them. But on the morning of April 29, 1961, Leonid Rogozov wakes up with a pain in his lower right abdomen. At first, it's just discomfort, a dull ache. He tries to ignore it. In Antarctica, you learn to push through pain. You have to. But by the afternoon, the pain is sharper. It radiates. It pulses. He presses his fingers against his side and feels the tenderness there. His training kicks in immediately. The location, the intensity, the progression. He knows exactly what this is. Appendicitis. His appendix is inflamed, and if it ruptures, he will die. He sits alone in his quarters that evening, staring at the wall. Outside, the wind rattles the windows. The temperature is 40 degrees below zero. The nearest hospital is thousands of miles away. The nearest doctor is sitting in this room. He is the nearest doctor. He is the only doctor, and his appendix is about to kill him. For 2 days, Rogozov tries conservative treatment. Antibiotics, ice packs, rest. He lies in his bunk, monitoring his own symptoms with clinical detachment. Fever, nausea, weakness. The pain is getting worse. He can feel his body turning against itself. On the second night, he barely sleeps. He knows what's happening inside him. The appendix is swelling. The walls are thinning. If it bursts, bacteria will flood his abdominal cavity, peritonitis, sepsis, death. Not quickly, slowly, painfully. And there's nothing anyone here can do about it. Except there is one option, one impossible option. He could operate on himself. The idea is insane. Surgery requires precision, concentration, the ability to see what you're doing. You can't operate on your own abdomen. The angle is wrong. The pain would be unbearable. The risk of shock, of bleeding out, of infection. It's all too high. But Rogozov is a scientist. He thinks in probabilities. If he does nothing, he dies. If he operates, maybe he dies. But maybe he doesn't. And that's not really a choice at all. On the evening of April 30th, Rogozov makes his decision. He gathers 2 of his colleagues, a meteorologist named Alexander Artemev and a driver named Zinovy Teplinsky. Neither of them has any medical training. He explains the situation calmly, methodically. His appendix needs to come out. Tonight, he will perform the surgery himself. They will assist. He shows them where to stand, how to hold the instruments, how to position the mirror so he can see into his own body. They stare at him like he's suggested flying to the moon. But they don't argue. There's no one else. There's no other plan. They prepare the makeshift operating room in the clinic. It's a small space, barely large enough for a table and a few shelves of equipment. Rogozov lays out his instruments with the precision of a jeweler arranging tools. Scalpels, forceps, clamps, retractors, sutures. Everything is sterilized, everything is checked twice. He prepares a solution of Novocaine for local anesthesia. He can't use general anesthesia. If he loses consciousness, he dies on the table. He has to stay awake. He has to stay alert. He has to cut into his own flesh and remove his own appendix while remaining conscious enough to do it correctly. He lies down on the table. The room is cold. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Artemev stands to his left, holding the mirror at an angle. Teplinsky stands to his right, ready to hand over instruments. A third colleague, a mechanic, waits near the door in case he's needed. Rogozov injects the Novocaine into his abdominal wall. He waits for it to take effect. The pain dulls slightly, but it doesn't disappear. It can't, not completely. He picks up the scalpel. For a moment, he hesitates. His hand hovers over his own skin. This is the moment. Once he makes the first cut, there's no turning back. He thinks of his wife, his young son. They're in Leningrad, half a world away. They have no idea what's happening right now. He thinks of his team, watching him, depending on him. He thinks of the ice outside, indifferent and eternal. And then he cuts. The blade slices through skin. Blood wells up immediately. Rogozov works quickly, efficiently, the way he was trained. He deepens the incision, cutting through layers of tissue. Fat, muscle, fascia. He can feel every movement, even through the anesthesia. It's not pain exactly, it's pressure. Sensation. His own body protesting the violation. He uses retractors to hold the wound open, but the angle is wrong. He can't see clearly. The mirror shows him a reversed image. Everything is backward. He adjusts, he compensates, he keeps cutting. 5 minutes in, he starts to feel dizzy. The room tilts slightly. He blinks hard, forcing his vision to clear. He can't afford to lose focus. Not now. Not yet. He reaches into his own abdomen, feeling with his fingers for the appendix. It should be right there, right in that area. But everything is slippery. Blood makes it hard to see. The mirror distorts the image. He's working blind, essentially. Operating by touch and memory. His fingers find something, a swollen mass. The appendix. It's worse than he thought, severely inflamed. The walls are thin, stretched to the breaking point. Another day, and it would have ruptured. He was right to operate, but now comes the hardest part. He has to clamp the blood vessels, tie them off, remove the appendix without spilling its infected contents into his abdominal cavity. All while lying on his back, looking into a mirror, fighting waves of nausea and dizziness. He signals to Artemev. The mirror needs to be adjusted. Just slightly. There, better. He can see now, not clearly, but enough. He takes a pair of scissors. He begins to cut the appendix free from the surrounding tissue. Every movement is slow, deliberate. His hands are shaking slightly. He doesn't know if it's from pain or adrenaline, or the simple physical strain of operating at this angle. It doesn't matter. He keeps working. 15 minutes, 20, 30, time loses meaning. The room narrows to this one task: cut, clamp, suture. His assistants stand frozen, watching in horrified fascination. They don't speak. They barely breathe. They hand him instruments when he asks for them. They adjust the mirror when he signals, but mostly they just watch as Rogozov cuts deeper into his own body, searching for the thing that's trying to kill him. At one point, he has to stop. The dizziness is too strong. He's losing blood. His pulse is rapid. He lies back, closes his eyes, takes slow breaths. He's close to passing out. If he loses consciousness now, he'll die. The thought cuts through the fog. He opens his eyes. He keeps going. Finally, after nearly 2 hours, he finds the base of the appendix. He ties it off with surgical thread. He cuts it free. The swollen, diseased tissue comes away in his hand. He holds it up for a moment, this small piece of his own body that nearly killed him, and then he drops it into a metal tray. It's over. Almost. He still has to close, suture the internal layers, close the muscle, close the skin. He's exhausted. Every movement feels like lifting a boulder. But he doesn't stop. He can't stop. Not until it's finished. Another 30 minutes pass. His hands move automatically now, muscle memory taking over where conscious thought has failed. Stitch by stitch, he closes the wound. When he ties off the final suture, he lets his hands fall to his sides. He's done. He's actually done. He operated on himself. He removed his own appendix. And he's still alive. Artemev and Teplinsky help him to his quarters. He can barely walk. They ease him into his bunk, cover him with blankets. Rogozov lies there in the darkness, listening to his own heartbeat. It's fast but steady. He's alive. For now, the surgery is only half the battle. Infection could still kill him, hemorrhage, complications. But he's alive, and that's more than he had a right to expect. The next morning, Rogozov wakes with a fever. His abdomen is swollen and tender. He examines the wound. No signs of major infection. Not yet. He administers antibiotics. He monitors his vital signs. He's still the doctor, still responsible for his own care. Over the next several days, he lies in bed, hovering between sleep and consciousness. His colleagues bring him food, water, medicine. They watch him with a mixture of awe and disbelief. They saw what he did. They still can't quite believe it. 5 days after the surgery, Rogozov's fever breaks. The swelling begins to subside. The wound is healing cleanly. By the end of the week, he's able to sit up, to walk short distances. He's not healthy, not yet. But he's recovering. Against all odds, his body is fighting back. By mid-May, less than 2 weeks after operating on himself, Leonid Rogozov returns to his duties at the station. He's weak. He moves carefully. But he's working. He's alive. The news of what happened doesn't reach the outside world immediately. Antarctica is isolated. Communications are limited. But eventually, word gets out. A Soviet doctor performed surgery on himself at a research station in Antarctica. The story is almost too incredible to believe. But it's true. It's documented. Photographs exist, journal entries, medical reports. Rogozov kept detailed notes throughout his ordeal. The incision, the procedure, the recovery. He approached his own near-death experience with the same clinical detachment he would have shown for any patient. When the Antarctic summer returns and the supply ships can finally reach Novolazarevskaya station, Rogozov and his team are relieved. He returns to Leningrad in the autumn of 1961. He's greeted as a hero. The Soviet press writes about him. Scientists around the world study his case. How did he do it? How did he manage the pain, the angle, the impossibility of it all? Rogozov deflects the attention. He's not comfortable with fame. He's a doctor. He did what needed to be done. That's all. But the questions remain. What kind of person can cut into their own body? What kind of mind can stay calm and focused while performing surgery on themselves? The answer isn't simple. Rogozov was highly trained. He had experience. He understood anatomy, physiology, surgical technique. But beyond that, he had something else. A kind of cold, rational courage. The ability to assess a situation, recognize the only path forward, and take it, no matter how terrifying. In the years that follow, Rogozov returns to normal life. He continues his medical career. He works as a surgeon in Leningrad, later in St. Petersburg. He specializes in traumatology. He marries. He raises his children. He lives quietly, modestly, without seeking attention. But the story of what he did in Antarctica follows him. It becomes legend, a tale told in medical schools, in survival courses, in documentaries about human endurance. The doctor who operated on himself. Rogozov rarely speaks about it publicly. When he does, his descriptions are matter of fact. He doesn't dramatize. He doesn't claim to be a hero. He simply states what happened. On April 30th, 1961, at a Soviet research station in Antarctica, his appendix became inflamed. There was no other doctor, so he removed it himself. That's the story. That's what happened. But to everyone who hears it, the story means something more. It represents the absolute limit of self-reliance, the furthest edge of what a human being can endure and overcome. Most of us will never face anything like it. We live in a world where help is usually available, where hospitals are nearby, where we can call for assistance and someone will come. But in that moment, in that frozen outpost, Rogozov had no such luxury. He was completely, utterly alone. And he survived because he refused to accept the alternative. Leonid Rogozov dies in the year 2000, at the age of 66. His death is quiet, unremarkable. He passes away at home, surrounded by family. But his legacy endures. His story is taught in medical schools as an example of extreme self-surgery. It's studied by psychologists interested in human performance under stress. It's told and retold in books, articles, documentaries. Because it's more than just a medical curiosity. It's a testament to what we're capable of when survival is the only option. Think about it for a moment. Imagine lying on a table, scalpel in hand, preparing to cut into your own flesh. Imagine the fear, the doubt, the overwhelming instinct to stop, to wait, to hope for rescue. Now imagine overcoming all of that. Imagine making the first cut, and the second, and the 100th. Imagine staying conscious, staying focused, while operating on yourself for 2 hours. Most people would pass out from the pain, from the shock, from the sheer psychological weight of what they were doing. But Rogozov didn't. He saw it through to the end. There's something almost mythological about it. Like Prometheus stealing fire, like Sisyphus pushing his boulder. It's the kind of story that feels too extreme to be real. But it is real. It happened. And that makes it all the more extraordinary. Rogozov's appendix, the one he removed from his own body, was preserved. It's kept in a medical museum in Russia. A small, unremarkable piece of tissue in a jar of formaldehyde. But it represents something profound. A moment when one man faced impossible odds and chose to fight. When death seemed certain and he decided otherwise. When the only person who could save him was himself. In the decades since, other cases of self-surgery have been documented. Farmers who amputate their own trapped limbs. Climbers who perform emergency procedures on themselves in the mountains. But none quite match the deliberate, methodical impossibility of what Rogozov did. He wasn't reacting in panic. He wasn't making a split-second decision in a moment of crisis. He planned it. He prepared. He thought it through. And then he did it. The Antarctic is a place of extremes. Extreme cold, extreme isolation, extreme danger. It tests everyone who goes there. It finds the weak points in equipment, in planning, in human endurance. And sometimes it finds the weak points in the human body itself. A failing appendix, a burst blood vessel, a broken bone. Things that would be minor emergencies elsewhere become life-threatening crises in Antarctica. Because there's no backup, no emergency room down the street, no helicopter evacuation. Just you and the ice and whatever resources you have. Rogozov understood this. He knew the risks when he signed up for the expedition. But knowing the risks and facing them are two different things. When his appendix began to fail, he could have despaired. He could have resigned himself to fate. Instead, he did the unthinkable. He became both doctor and patient, both healer and wounded. He split himself in two and saved his own life. There's a photograph of Rogozov taken after the surgery. He's lying in bed. His face is pale, drawn, exhausted. But his eyes are clear, alert. There's no triumph in his expression, no pride, just the quiet determination of someone who's been to the edge and come back. He looks like a man who knows exactly how close he came to death, and how lucky he is to still be breathing. That photograph is haunting because it shows the cost, not just the physical cost, though that's evident in his pallor, his weakness, but the psychological cost. What does it do to a person to cut into their own body, to feel the blade, the blood, the violation of self? How do you reconcile the part of you that wants to survive with the part that's screaming at you to stop? Rogozov found a way. He compartmentalized, he detached, he became a machine, executing a procedure, following steps learned in medical school. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. When we tell stories of human courage, we often focus on soldiers, on explorers, on people who face external threats, external enemies. But Rogozov's enemy was internal. His own body was killing him, and he had to fight himself to survive. That's a different kind of courage, a different kind of battle, one that most of us can't even imagine. The station where it happened, Novolazarevskaya, still exists. It's been rebuilt, modernized. Today it houses dozens of researchers and support staff. There are better medical facilities now, satellite communications, emergency protocols. If someone develops appendicitis there today, they can be evacuated. They don't have to perform surgery on themselves. But the story of what happened there in 1961 hasn't been forgotten. It's part of the station's history, part of Antarctica's history, a reminder of how fragile we are and how strong we can be when we have no other choice. Rogozov's children have spoken about their father in interviews over the years. They describe him as quiet, humble, devoted to his work. They say he rarely talked about Antarctica. When he did, it was usually to tell funny stories about his colleagues, about the isolation, about the absurdities of life at the bottom of the world. He didn't dwell on the surgery, didn't seek recognition for it. It was simply something that happened, something he had to do. And then life went on. But for those of us who hear the story, life doesn't just go on. The story stays with us. It challenges us. It asks us questions we're not sure how to answer. What would I do in that situation? Could I do what Rogozov did? Would I have the strength, the skill, the sheer force of will to cut into my own body to save my own life? Most of us hope we'll never have to find out. But the question lingers. What Rogozov did wasn't just a medical procedure. It was an act of defiance, a refusal to accept fate. The universe, the cold, the isolation, all of it conspired to kill him. And he said no. With his own hands, with his own skill, he took control of his destiny. He didn't wait for rescue. He didn't pray for a miracle. He became the miracle. That's the heart of the story. That's why it endures. Because it reminds us that even when we're completely alone, even when no one is coming to save us, we still have agency. We still have choice. We can give up. Or we can fight. And sometimes, fighting means doing the impossible. It means facing our worst fears and pushing through them. It means becoming both our own worst enemy and our own best hope. Leonid Rogozov's name isn't widely known outside of medical circles. He's not a household name. There are no statues of him, no monuments. Just a preserved appendix in a museum and a story that gets told and retold. But in a way, that's fitting. Because heroes don't always need monuments. Sometimes their actions speak loudly enough on their own. On a frozen continent, at the bottom of the world, a young surgeon faced the impossible. And he did it. Not for glory, not for recognition, but because survival demanded it. Because the alternative was unacceptable. Because when you're alone in the dark and death is closing in, you fight with everything you have, even if that means fighting yourself. That's the legacy of Leonid Rogozov. That's the Antarctic Miracle of 1961. Not that he survived, but that he chose to survive. That he looked at impossible odds and decided they weren't impossible after all. That he trusted his hands, his training, his will, and he did what needed to be done. And in the end, isn't that what defines us? Not the circumstances we face, but how we face them. Not what happens to us, but what we choose to do about it. Rogozov could have died in Antarctica. His story could have ended there, another tragedy in a long history of polar exploration. But it didn't. Because he refused to let it. Because somewhere deep inside, in a place beyond fear and pain and rational thought, he found the strength to save himself. That strength exists in all of us. We may never need it, the way Rogozov did. We may never face such stark, brutal choices, but it's there, waiting, ready. The will to survive, the refusal to give up, the ability to do what seems impossible because there's no other option. Leonid Rogozov proved that in the most dramatic way imaginable. He operated on himself in Antarctica. He survived. He went home. He lived a long life. And he left behind a story that will outlive us all. A story about courage, about skill, about the indomitable human spirit. A story that asks us to imagine ourselves in his place and wonder if we'd have the strength to do the same. The answer, we hope, is yes. But we'll probably never know. And maybe that's for the best. Because some tests are better left untaken, some limits are better left unexplored. But knowing that someone else explored them, knowing that Leonid Rogozov went to the absolute edge of human endurance and came back, that's enough. That's the miracle. That's the story. In the silence of Antarctica, in the cold and the dark, one man refused to die. And in doing so, he showed us all what we're capable of when survival is all that matters. That's not just a medical curiosity. That's not just an interesting anecdote. That's proof. Proof that even in our darkest moments, even when we're completely alone, we have the power to save ourselves. If we're willing to pay the price. If we're willing to do what must be done. Leonid Rogozov was willing, and that's why we remember him. That's why his story matters. That's why, more than 60 years later, we're still talking about the doctor who operated on himself at the bottom of the world. Because some acts of courage transcend time. Some stories need to be told, and some people, through sheer force of will, become legends.